I'm Jared from TotalGuitarMastery.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to practice lead guitar exercises effectively so you can build up your technique, build up your speed, and really have that confidence when you solo and play lead guitar. And I'm going to give you 7 powerful steps or tips to be able to do this. And these are some of the same things that I used to go from struggling with my technique, feeling sloppy, I was slow. This is how I went from that to being able to feel a lot more confident when I played, being able to build up my speed, and I've used this to help a lot of students over the years too. So before we get started, if you're looking for a comprehensive step-by-step blueprint to practicing lead guitar exercises from top to bottom and building your speed and technique and avoiding years of wasted effort doing the wrong things, then you want to check out my course, The Perfect Practice Blueprint. That course is going to break down for you step by step, top to bottom, how to practice an exercise, all the way from the technical stuff up to being able to use it creatively when you play over a backing track. And it'll go into detail and give you the full picture on how to do that, how to practice lead guitar. So if that's what you're interested in, check out the link in the description, and I'll leave a link below too for more information. All right, now let's get into the 7 steps. The first thing is to practice small, loopable exercises. You want to avoid exercises that are too long, and that's why using solos as your main way of building your technique on guitar is really difficult to do, because solos, you have this long set of different things to learn. You might have a bunch of different techniques crammed in there, and you just got a lot of information to have to sort through. So it's better if you can keep small exercises as your main focus. If the exercise is too long, you're going to focus too much on memorizing, and we want to be able to get out of that and more into building your technique, which means you got to get into your body, we got to get off the page, off the tablature. So small exercises let you really zoom in to what you're doing with your technique. Now, when I say small exercises, I mean I'll give you a note range. It could be as few as like 6 notes all the way up to 24 notes. Somewhere in that range is about right. You can see the exercise I have up on the screen is kind of a perfect exercise. It's about 12 notes, but you could go shorter than that. You could go a little bit longer. All right, point number 2 is to focus on one technique at a time, and make the exercise that you're practicing about one technique, like picking or maybe legato, for instance. You want to practice those techniques separately, and later on you can practice combining them together. But this is another reason why solos are a hard place to really develop your technique, because there's just too many techniques that are combined. A lot of times you're going to have legato and picking and sweep picking and tapping and a bunch of other things crammed into one. But when you make your exercises, or you find exercises, you want to try to focus on ones that are dedicated to one technique at a time. That way you can get your reps in, build your muscle memory up for just that technique. Now, once you practice these techniques separately, you can then create or find exercises that pull them together, integrate them together, like what you see on the screen. So this one is going to have, you can see it has legato and it has picking combined. But it's better if you can work on those separately at the same time, or before you get to something like this. All right, tip number 3 is to practice on the pattern that you're working on different fragments in the scale. So for instance, the one that I showed you at the beginning, that 12-note exercise, that was in the key of A minor, and I can take that pattern and I can move it to different spots in the A minor scale. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me different finger combinations, as you can see on the screen. So I'm using the same pattern. I'm kind of using something I'm already familiar with, but now I'm getting work in for different combinations of fingers, which is going to build my technique even more without having to learn a whole different pattern or something else crazy that I got to go off and do. And so if you don't know a ton of different scales, or you don't know how to play around your whole fretboard, what you can do is just use different fragments within any scale shape that you know. So if you know one shape of the minor scale, just take the fragment and play on a different set of strings. And that'll get you in a different finger combination, and you'll be able to, build your technique even more than if you just only used one set of fingers. All right, tip number 4 is when you practice technique, and this is probably one of the most important tips. When you practice technique, focus on the body. Now, I'm going to get into what this means because this could make a lot of difference in your playing. So it has to do with where you focus. So think about it. When you improvise, where do you focus? You're probably thinking about the ideas that are in your head. You're probably thinking about the sounds that you hear. So you're kind of in your head, right? Whatever's going through your head, that's what you're thinking about. And you're trying to find that on the guitar. So you're probably not thinking about, your picking technique at that moment or having everything lined up just right with your hands or whatever. You're not really thinking about technique. You're thinking about your creativity. That's where your focus is at. Think about what you focus on when you're trying to memorize some part of your fretboard, chords or scales. You're probably thinking about the visual shape a lot, not so much maybe the technique of everything that's going on in your hands. A lot of it's going to be down to trying to just remember where you have to put your fingers. So when you are trying to build your speed and your technique, where do you focus? It should really be on your body. That's where that domain, if you want to call it that, is at. So it's not on the fretboard. It's not up in your head with the sounds that you hear and creativity. It's in your fingers, in your arms, in your entire body from top to bottom that controls your speed and your technique. So that's where you need to be focused. So the takeaways from that are that you want to quickly as possible memorize an exercise so you can take your focus off of the tablature or the notes and be able to put your focus into your body. And then the second thing here is that you want to focus on how you feel as you play guitar. So you want to notice the tension that you feel. If it's way too much, you need some tension to play, but you don't want it to be so much that and you're just ignoring it. Your fingers are kind of moving really weird and they're jumping away from the strings because they got a lot of tension in them. You want to be able to notice things like that as you play. That's the stuff that's going to really improve your speed and improve your technique. And if you're too focused on the tabs or the notes, you can't put your focus where it needs to be, which is into your body. And this is hard for a lot of people at first because you basically have to think of yourself almost like an athlete. An athlete puts a lot of focus into their body. That's where you need to put your focus if you want to get faster and you want to get control of your technique. All right, so tip number 5 is to go slow enough to focus on what you're doing. So this would include things like your hand position, making sure that what I call your basic setup doesn't break down. Your basic setup is just basically the different postures and like the way you set your hands up to be able to play. It's kind of a general way that you just get them set up, and you're basically trying to hold that together and keep it from falling apart. Now, most students that I work with over the years, they play too fast, and I did the same thing too. You play too fast. You're kind of like on the edge of just being able to hold it together, and that's where a lot of people will get in their reps. But what you want to do instead is you want to go slow enough that you can really concentrate on those things that I just mentioned, on keeping your hands together, your posture where it needs to be at, your basic setup, and making sure that stuff doesn't fall apart. Okay, you need to just go slow enough to do that. How slow is slow enough? A lot of times it's, I'll give you a starting point, right? 60 beats per minute on the metronome, 1 note per click. That's your starting point. You want to go at least that slow when you're trying to focus on things like this. Maybe even slower. Maybe every 2 clicks is when you change between notes, or every 4 clicks is when you change between notes. For a lot of people, that's really slow. But that might be as slow as you need to go to be able to concentrate on these things. And that is going to get you playing faster and with better technique in a lot less time because you're thinking about the stuff that actually is going to change all that. Now, like I mentioned, if you want more detail on the basic setup and postures and stuff like that, I break all that stuff down in the Perfect Practice Blueprint that I mentioned at the beginning. Like I mentioned, that'll be in the link below. Check that out if you want more of a breakdown on what the basic setup is. Okay, let's go back to the steps here. Step number 6 is that every now and then you want to speed up your playing and notice the problems. Okay, so you want to spend a decent amount of time actually practicing faster, which I know contradicts what I just said about practicing slower, right? Well, you want to practice slow quite a bit, but you also need to practice playing faster, because if your goal is to build your speed, it's the same thing as like if you wanted to run. You wouldn't spend all your time practicing walking if you want to be able to run, right? So in the same way, you wouldn't spend all your time practicing slow if you want to be able to play faster. You actually need to spend some time just running on the guitar. Now, when you do this, your technique won't be perfect. And that's great because it gives you an opportunity to see the stuff that doesn't happen the way that you want it to. So think about if you're running and you want to get faster at running, there's probably things in how you're running that are keeping you back from going faster, your technique. And so when you try to run as fast as you can and you're able to see it somehow, maybe a mirror, maybe someone's recording you or something like that, then you're going to be able to see those things that are happening, those inefficiencies that are happening that you can get rid of, and that'll allow you to be able to run faster. It works the same way on guitar. So run faster on guitar, and then make sure you notice what happens, the stuff that doesn't feel good, the stuff that doesn't feel comfortable and feels maybe inefficient, like your fingers are flying everywhere, the pick's going too far past the strings. Notice things like that and then try to correct those things when you go slower again, when you're doing your slow practice. All right, tip number 7 is to look for the 1%. So what do I mean by the 1%? It means basically not expecting everything to be perfect right away. You're going to have to build your technique and build your speed over a little bit of time. And the easiest way to do this is to focus on one little like brick of progress at a time. So the 1%. So what I like to do to get in that mindset is basically just throw out getting faster. You kind of got to throw it out of your mind. Just getting the result. You got to put it down the road a little bit and just try to get completely into the process of the things that I've already just mentioned. Get into your body, get into using the metronome, practicing a little bit slower, practicing faster, and noticing your problems. Get into the things that we just talked about, and what that'll do is now you're going to be focused on the things that will actually get you better. If you're just focused on the outcome that you want, you're probably going to get frustrated and discouraged, and then you probably won't get the speed that you want and won't get the technique that you want. Now, when you're doing the right things, here's the crazy thing, is that when you're doing the right things, a lot of times it will feel slower and worse at first. So it'll actually feel like you're kind of doing the wrong stuff because it's like harder to go slower. It's harder to focus on what's going on in your fingers, your body. When it's that way, it's a sign you're actually doing the right stuff. You just got to give it a little bit of time. So stick with it and look for those 1% of improvement, and I guarantee you will get there. All right, I hope this video was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below what you struggle with your lead guitar technique and trying to build your speed. There's so many different things that people struggle with. Let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you have any questions about anything that we talked about in this video. And if you want to get the complete blueprint to doing what we talked about here, practicing lead guitar exercises, and you want to see from top to bottom how to do it, how to build your speed, how to build your technique, and also how to take those exercises and use them when you improvise, when you want to get creative. So, all the way from the technical to the musical, you want to see the complete picture of how to practice. Check out the Perfect Practice Blueprint. I'll leave the link below for you to check that out. So until the next video, I'll see you later.